It is time. I have a map and everything today. So everybody grab your Bibles and let's go to 1 Samuel. We're actually going to start in chapter 12 as a reminder about what we talked about last week. And last week we had Samuel kind of sitting everybody down and saying, you blew it. It's not my fault. It wasn't because I was a terrible judge, not because I was doing a terrible job or anything like that. So you can't blame me. It's not because God's been unfaithful. God has continued to help you and bless you all along the way. So don't blame anybody else. You guys made this terrible decision to have a king, and God has provided you a king. He is there. But what I like about the way he presented it was, now let's all move forward to blessing. People make terrible decisions. It happens. Can God still bless us after we make a bad decision? If we're willing to do what? Well, that's how it ended up. Here it comes down to in 1 Samuel chapter 12, verse 23. This is one of the reasons we've been studying Samuel is, how do we relate, how do we interact with people who have done this? And this is a good example. Chapter 12, verse 23. Moreover, as for me, as for Samuel, God forbid that I should sin against the Lord in ceasing to pray for you, but I will teach you the good and right way. I'm not going to abandon you. You've made this mistake. Okay, let's move on. You have a whole life ahead of you, right? You as a nation, Israel, have a whole life ahead of you. So from this point, let's move forward. I will not cease to pray for you and continue to teach you and encourage you all on the way. And that is his job. What does he want them to do? Only fear the Lord, verse 24, and serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider how great things he hath done for you. As for when we make the mistake, let's say we're on that side of things, and we have made the mistake. What do we do now? Get back on the bike, right? Get back on the horse, and do what? Let's do what is right now. Even considering we have this burden, we have this sin that we've committed, but still, can God get us through? Yes, absolutely. Let's move forward and let us fear him now. Let's follow him now. Let's obey him now because, verse 25, but if you shall still do wickedly, you shall be consumed, both you and your king. It's not because they chose a king that they will be consumed. It's not because of the mistakes they have made. They've repented and, right? It's because of any mistakes they make in the future. If they continue to do wickedly, continue down the same path, they have to what? Choose. And is it up to us to choose as well? Yes. And for us, when we're dealing with somebody who's made a bad choice, what is our job? Our job is clear. Do not sin, but to continue to pray for them and encourage them and teach them and help them fear the Lord. Help them do what is right and not act wickedly. So, now let's move forward. So that point has happened, and let's move forward. What is King Saul going to now? Is he going to lead them in the way of blessing or not? So let's see what happens in chapter 13. Saul reigned 1 year, and when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose 3,000 men of Israel, whereof 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and in Mount Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin, and the rest of the people he sent every man to his tent. So he reigned for a year, not a lot of stuff going on, a few battles here and there. In his second year, he gets together and he has 3,000 men. Is that a lot, by the way? It's not really a lot. It's not a huge army. He's got 2,000 here in Michmash, and Jonathan has them in Gibeah. So he's got 1,000 there, 2,000 there. Okay. Why? Well, because he has decided to attack the Philistines. It's like, where are the Philistines? Well, the Philistines are at Gibeah. Whose land is that? That's Israel's land. And they're sitting there in Gibeah. So he says, I'm going to take 2,000 here, and he'll have 1,000 there, and let's take care of those guys. Let's see what happens. Verse 3. And Jonathan smote the garrison of Philistines that was in Geba, and the Philistines heard of it, and Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, Let the Hebrews hear. And all Israel heard say that Saul had smitten a garrison of the Philistines. By the way, that's just the way it works. Even though it was the 1,000 that actually had the victory over Geba, who always gets the credit? The king, right? King always, for good or for bad. If it had gone wrong, who would have gotten all the, yeah. So, that's how it goes. So, and what? And that Israel also had an abomination with the Philistines, and the people were called together after Saul to Gilgal. So they attacked this garrison that was in Geba. They wipe it out, right? And now the Philistines are mad. Have you ever poked a hornet's nest? You ever turned down over an ant nest? What is everybody doing? Oh, they get angry, don't they? You may have seen one or two. I still remember I was at camp. And I was a counselor at a camp up in near Fresno, California. And there was we had like the punch bowl for the kids. They were all out there and they were getting their drinks and everything. And right above it there was a yellow jacket. I said, well, we can't do that. You can't have a yellow jacket sitting there right by the kids. So I took a piece of paper and smashed it. What I didn't see was the hole in the building right next to where that guy was, and out of that poured hundreds of yellow jackets all over the place. Everybody's like, ah! That's what he did. He poked them there, and who came? Everybody started coming. And so he blew the horn and said, everybody get to where? Gilgal. Gilgal is so important. Gilgal, again, is where Joshua came. That was where his headquarters was. It's right next to Jericho, by the way. If you didn't see, there's a little dot. If there was a dot right there, it'd be Jericho. So it's where they came in across. That's where they crossed into the promised land. It's where they split up the land amongst the people and did all of that. So, and Gilgal is very important. That's where he was crowned king, right? So Gilgal, let's get everybody to Gilgal. Everybody knows where it's at. Everybody knows how to get there. Let's all get there. Verse 5, and the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel. Now, he had 3,000. Is he going to need more? Because what came after him? 30,000 chariots. 30,000 chariots. And 6,000 horsemen, cavalry of 6,000. And people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude. And they came up and pitched in Michmash eastward from Bethaven. And they all came and rushing down, and it all came here. Coming eastward, they just came like locusts. And they came and camped out here. And where are they? That's not very far. So the little experience is everybody come to Gilgal because this is going to be a fight, right? And people came. Let's give them credit. But basically the problem was they came and they looked over and saw 30,000 chariots, thousands of horsemen, and people like sand in the sea and said, Now, Saul said he knew he needed God's help. If you need God's help, who do you call on? Well, you call on the judge, right? You call on Samuel. And Samuel said, within 7 days, I will come to Gilgal. Now, he's usually over here in Ramah, Gibeah. That's kind of his little route there, traveling back and forth and things like that. So he's over here. So he says, I'll be there within 7 days, and I will do sacrifices, right? Because that's my job. Who's supposed to do sacrifices? Priests, right? They're supposed to do that. And that was his job. So he says, I will come and do that. Verse 6. When the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were distressed. Don't blame them. What if you got there and saw all that? They didn't have a lot of weapons. We're going to see that later on. They didn't have a lot of chariots. They didn't have any. Maybe one or two. They didn't have a lot of horsemen. They didn't have a lot of that stuff. And they see all these people and how serious the Philistines were about this, and they're scared. Then the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks and in high places and in pits. So they looked at all the enemy and said, I'm hiding. I'm not going to stand here at Gilgal and just have them rush me into the Jordan River. And they all ran away and hid. Verse 7, and some of the Hebrews even went over Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. So some of them even like, okay, I'm going to go over the river. I'm not waiting for them to drive me into the river. I'm going over to Gad, which is over on this side. I'm going to go over there. I don't want any part of this. And some of the Hebrews went over to Jordan, Gad, and Gilead. As for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. All the people. Did he have a substantial army left? Started with 3,000. Called all the people to come, and then they all went and hid, and he ended up with 600. 600 against what? Sand of the shore. Is this a problem? Yes. Verse 8. And he tarried 7 days according to the set time that Samuel had appointed, but Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. So they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting. Now, Samuel said he'd be there, what? Within 7 days, right? But it comes the seventh day, and what? He's not there yet. And I'm sure it was like sunrise the seventh day. It's like, he's got to come. This is the seventh day. He's got all day, though, folks, right? He's not late yet. It's like he's got all day. Sometime that day, he said he'd be there. But they're like, we got to get it now. Everybody, I can almost hear Saul the whole time. Oh, hang in there, guys. He'll be here that morning. On that morning, he will be here. Don't worry. By noon, I'm sure of it, he will be here. And he wasn't there yet. So what did Saul decide to do? What do we sometimes decide to do when we're scared and it doesn't feel like God has things under control and God hasn't done what we think he should do yet? We solve it ourselves. And we should put that in big quotes. Solve it. Because we don't solve things, do we? We tend to mess them up. And that's exactly what did. So in verse 9, and Saul said, bring hither a burnt offering to me and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. He just wanted people to feel like they had hope, right? He just wanted people to stop leaving. He wanted to show them that things were under control, that God was on their side by breaking God's commandment. Anything wrong with that statement? I will show God is in control by breaking his word. No, that's not the way you do things, right? And of course, as often happens when you're waiting for something, what happened as soon as he was done? And it came to pass, verse 10, that as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came. You know that's going to happen, right? As soon as you decide to take that step, it's like, then he walks up. And Saul went out to meet him that he might salute him. And he put a good attitude. Hey, Samuel, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Everything's under control. Is it? No, he took control. It's not under control. So what is Samuel going to do? Verse 11, and Samuel said, what hast thou done? He could see, right? Burnt offering over there. He knew he could see what happened here. What did you do, Saul? And Saul said, because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that you came not within the days appointed. By the way, did he? Yeah, it's on that seventh day. So, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. What is that called when somebody does that? Justification. Let me justify. Does he know he did something wrong? He knows the rules. He does not do burnt offerings. There is a separation of powers here, right? The priests do the offerings. The king leads the country. This hasn't been going on that long, but everybody knew those rules, didn't they? This is the way it works. And he broke it, and instead of taking responsibility, he says, let me justify this. The people were leaving me. By the way, can God solve that problem? How many people did God need to defeat that huge army? Well, 0, 1. So, don't give me that. Don't you remember Gideon? Don't you remember all these times? I mean, come on now. Don't give me that. That's not a justification. The people weren't doing what I didn't have what I needed. Everything was going wrong. I didn't have the resources I needed. No, God's got it under control, right? So that doesn't work. And you, Samuel, so blame Samuel, you didn't come when I thought you should come. You didn't come in my timing. Is that ever a good excuse? That's not a good excuse. Because whose timing was Samuel working on? God's timing. Right? Again, we saw that this morning, don't we? Does God have timing? Does he know what is best? Absolutely. And third, he, of course, blamed the Philistines. They were going to attack. But again, does God know all that? If God needed Samuel there earlier, what would God have done? Hey, Samuel, get there. And it's kind of funny because remember when he first anointed Saul, he said, you must wait for me 7 days in Gilgal. Now, the way I read that is that was probably when he was actually made king earlier, but it's funny that one of these first episodes between Samuel and Saul is the same thing. Just wait. You've done this before. You've waited here before. Just wait for me. How hard is it to wait? Well, it's hard. It's hard when you think everything's going to go wrong. Everybody's trembling. Everybody's scared. You just want to put people's mind at ease, but you can't do that by doing the wrong thing. Therefore, verse 12, I had no choice. There were no options, right? That's what he says. Said I, the Philistines will come now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication unto the Lord. I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering. That's man's logic, isn't it? Mankind, we can so wrap ourselves up into terrible, terrible logic. Do you see the logic there? For us to win against the Philistines, we need to have God on our side, right? Everybody agree with that? To have God on our side, we must have a burnt offering. Okay, I mean, it's a good thing to offer unto the Lord before you go into battle. But we must have a burnt offering. And that's not too bad. Okay, we must have the burnt offering. Therefore, I will disobey the Lord and give a bad burnt offering so he'll be on our side so we can beat the Philistines. Where'd that break down? Yeah, disobeying God is never the answer, is it? It's like, God wants me to solve this problem by disobeying him. Does that make sense to anybody? God will be on my side if I disobey him. Does that make any sense to anybody? But I forced myself to disobey God so that he would be on our side and we would win. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. So, and again, how easy is it to pile on Saul, right? Well, big dummy, but come on now. We have this kind of logic sometimes, don't we? Is the answer ever to disobey God? Is that ever part of God's plan? You disobey me, and then I'll be on your side. Then I'll help you. I try to get this across to the kids all the time. Disobeying God is never the answer. What's always the answer? Doing the right thing. Doing what God wants to do. That's always the answer. That's always the way to go. So, but he did it, and I forced myself. I had no other option. I was being a leader. And what did Samuel have to tell Saul? And sometimes this is hard to do. Sometimes we have to tell people that they made a mistake. And sometimes when we do that, it's easy to attack them. I want you to notice how Samuel talks to King Saul. And Samuel said to Saul, "Thou hast done foolishly." Does he say, "Saul, you're an idiot"? "Saul, you moron. Saul, you are so stupid"? What's the truth of the matter? He has done foolishly. He has acted like a fool. I'm not saying you are, but you've acted foolishly. But, I mean, we do have to say it like it really is. They have done something foolish. By the way, how many of us have done something foolish? We're not idiots. We're not morons. We're not fools. But we do things foolishly sometimes, don't we? He doesn't attack him. He attacks what he did. And just says, you've done foolishly. This was not good. And there are consequences. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. What's the foolish thing that he did? He did not do what God commanded him to do. That's a foolish thing. Did he do other foolish things? Yes. Blaming other people, trying to justify, all that's foolish. But what at the bottom line is, he did foolishly by disobeying God, directly countering his commandment. And what's the consequence? For would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever, but now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because you have not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. And there are consequences, aren't there? God cannot deal with this. God cannot condone this, and you cannot have this person as the king in perpetuity. It can't be handed down. But, he's going to get somebody right for this job. But does that mean Saul's going to die right away? No. Is Saul still going to be able to act? Is still going to be able to go on and move forward? Yes. But the blessings. How many times do people miss blessings because they disobey God? Now, do they miss out on all the presence of God and all the help of God and all the love of God? No, we never miss out on those things. But do we sometimes eliminate the blessings of God? Yes. And that's what he's missed out on. He was going to bless you, but now he's not. Now that is going to go, and we all know who's it going to go to. Who's this man after God's own heart that he has already chosen? It's David. David, right? Verse 15, and Samuel arose and gat him up from Gilgal unto Gibeah of Benjamin, and Saul numbered the people that were present with him, about 600 men. So he goes and leaves and goes back down into Gibeah. That was it. No tirade, no pointing of fingers, no name calling, no just, I'm sorry. And we're going to see this more and more between Samuel and Saul. Yes, Saul does foolishly. Several times. But does Samuel always have compassion? Yeah. He actually feels sorry for him. He does. And should we understand that people do foolish things? Don't come down like a ton of bricks. Don't insult them, but just, that was not right. And because of that, there's going to be some problems. But let's move on. In fact, I want to note something. Verse 16, and Saul and Jonathan his son, remember he had the other command there, and one took out Geba, and the people that were present with him, 600 people, abode in where? Gibeah of Benjamin. But the Philistines encamped in Michmash. So they all went down here. Why did they go there? Who's in Gibeah? Who just went back to Gibeah? Samuel. So they all go down to Gibeah. And I find encouragement in that, don't you? It's not like Samuel's like, I'm done with you. I'm out of here. I never want to see you again. No, actually, Jonathan and the 600 people that he's got left, and they all come down and they hang out in Gibeah where Samuel is. Samuel's not done with them. God's not done with them. It's just like, hey, you blew it. There's consequences. But hey, in fact, how much is God still on their side? Let's find out, shall we? All right. Because, first of all, let's go, is there absolutely no hope here? How many people does he have? 600 against what? 30,000 chariots and people as the sand of the sea. You know, it could even be worse. What's worse than having only 600 people? Having 600 people who have no weapons. How many agree that's worse? That's even worse. And that's exactly, you want to know how bad this situation was? Verse 17. And the spoilers came out of the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. One company turned unto the way that leadeth to Ophrah. So that's up this way. They came and they're up there. They're spoiling cities. They're going out and taking stuff. And another company turned way to Beth Horon, down that way. And another company turned to the way of the border that looks to the valley of Zeboim toward the wilderness. Wilderness down here. So they're encamped at Michmash, but they're causing havoc throughout Israel. What else are they doing? Verse 19. Now there was no smith. Nobody named Smith. No. Nobody who was an ironsmith or metalsmith of any kind found throughout all the land of Israel. So the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make them swords or spears. But all the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen every man his share, and his coulter, and his axe, and his mattock. So there was no blacksmiths. There was nobody they could go to. In fact, if they had an axe and needed it sharpened, they would have to take it to the Philistines and say, can you sharpen my axe for me, please? Kind of tough to go to war when you have to ask the enemy if you can sharpen your weapons, potential weapons. Plus, there were no swords, no spears. The only people who had those were Jonathan and Saul. Verse 20, yet they had a file for the mattocks and for the coulters and the forks and the axes and to sharpen the goads. So basically all these 600 guys who had left all had farming instruments that they were using a file to make sharp. And by the way, you can't get those as sharp as you need to without a smith who can heat it up and really make it sharp. So they're doing the best they can. That's all they've got. So it came to pass in the day of the battle that there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people that were with Saul and Jonathan, but with Saul and with Jonathan his son that was there found. So there's only 2. Saul's probably got a spear, which he loves to throw later on, and a sword, and Jonathan's got a sword and a spear, and that's it. Everybody else has pitchforks and axes and stuff like that. And the garrison of the Philistines went out to the passage of Michmash. So, how many would say there's no hope here? Plus, Saul blew it, right? They don't have God's blessing. This is a mess, but that's not. Yes, Saul did something foolish. Does that mean God has abandoned them? No. Is God still on their side? How much on their side? Jonathan. Gotta love Jonathan. One of my favorite stories here. Let's go see what Jonathan decides to do. So they're hanging out here. They're in Gibeah. Up here in Michmash is where they're going, right? That's where all the people are. Chapter 14. Now it came to pass upon a day that Jonathan the son of Saul said unto the young men that bare his armor, come, and let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side. But he told not his father. Okay, how many want to be his armor bearer? That sounds like a great job. Man, it's the prince's. I mean, he's the warrior. It'd be great. Until he says something like, hey, how about you and me go over to the enemy and just start something up? I love the armor bearer. I want to meet the armor bearer someday. I have a feeling we will. I don't want to shake his hand and say, dude, you're awesome. Because what did he say? Let's do it. Verse 2, and Saul tarried in the uttermost part of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree, which is in Migron. And the people that were with him there were 600 men, all hanging out underneath the tree. And he's got Ahiah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, and the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh, wearing an ephod. And the people knew not that Jonathan was gone. So you have the priests there, you have those relatives, the grandson of Eli, and all those people. They're all hanging out thinking all hope is lost, not realizing that Jonathan He's gone over to the other side to see what's going on. Verse 4. And between the passages by which Jonathan sought to go over unto the Philistines' garrison, there was a sharp rock on the one side and a sharp rock on the other side. And the name of the one was Bozez, and the name of the other was Sinai. The forefront of the one was situate northward over against Michmash, and the other southward over against Gibeah. So they're coming right here in the middle, and they're coming, and one's kind of facing this way, and they're going to come up, and all the garrison, all these people, all of them are hanging out there, right? He's got to have a plan, right? If you're the armor bearer, what are you thinking? We're just going to go look around, right? We're just going to go see if they're still there. We're not going to do anything, are we? Oh, they're going to do something. Verse 6, and Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, Come, let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised, these heathens. It may be that the Lord will work for us. And there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few. That is one of the great statements in the Bible. All right? Let's go see. See what the Lord wants to do. We can take him. God could use just the two of us to take him. Let's go see what God wants to do. And what does the armor bearer evidently say? Okay, let's go. And the armor bearer said, Do all that is in thine heart. Turn thee, behold, I am with thee according to thy heart. Let's go. Let's do this. Would you do that? Then Jonathan, behold, we will pass over unto these men, and we will discover ourselves unto them. This is a great plan. How many would think at least wait for nightfall, we'll sneak in and look around, let's do that. You know, it's like, okay, in the middle of the day, this is a plan. We're going to come up out of the rocks, we're going to say, yoo-hoo, we're over here. We're Israelites over here. That's a plan, isn't it? That's a good plan. Verse 9, if they say unto us, Tarry until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place, and we will not go up unto them. What do they think will happen? They'll come over there and fight, come over there and arrest them? I don't know. But if they say stand still, we'll stand still. That's a great plan. But if they say thus, come up unto us, then we will go up to them, for the Lord hath delivered them into our hand, and this shall be a sign unto us. If they say, come over here, then we know we have a green light to defeat them. Really? Okay. All right, that makes sense to me. And both of them discovered themselves unto the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, Behold, the Hebrews come forth out of the holes where they have hid themselves. See, they already knew that most of his army had done what? Hid themselves in rocks. But like, now they're coming up out of the holes. And the men of the garrison answered Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, Come up to us, and we will show you a thing. And Jonathan said unto his armor bearer, Come up after me, for the Lord hath delivered them into the hand of Israel. And they go over and they take them out. They start killing everybody. Two guys. An armor bearer and a soldier. Now, over here on the Gibeah side, they hear a stir over here. And it's like, what's going on over there? Are they starting getting ready to attack? What are they getting to do? In fact, he even turns to the priest and said, Hey guys, get the ark. Now, it's hard to tell when he says get the ark if he means get the ark, we're leaving. It kind of sounds that way. Get the ark, let's leaving. Or if it means get the ark, we're going ahead. Because it wasn't until they got a message back that said, hey, they're being defeated over there, that he says, oh, leave the ark here, let's go. So it seems to me like when he says grab it, he means let's grab and go. Let's get out of here because something's happening. And instead, it's like, oh, wait, something happened? We're winning over there? So he said, oh, if we're winning over there, let's go. And they started an attack. And those 600 men and Saul led the way, and they went and they attacked and they defeated. They were even killing each other. The Philistines were killing each other. And in all the confusion, everybody said, oh, there's Hebrews there, there's Hebrews there. And they're like slashing each other and killing each other. I mean, it's a mess over there. And Saul comes in and routs them. People who were hiding, They saw what was going on and said, hey, we're winning. Let's go join the fight. Don't you hate those people? Yeah. Front runners, right? So they all came in and they had such a great victory there at Michmash. Showing what? Is God still on their side? Even when we do foolishly, is God still on our side? Is it possible we lose blessings? Yes. All the blessings? All the care? All the love? No. All he's lost right now is that, yes, his family would not be the one on the throne in perpetuity forever. But God could still bless him throughout his reign, couldn't he? Who knows? Jonathan could even have been the next king at this point. So, but he lost a blessing, but it's not the end of the world. And that's what I like about this story. We need to remember that. Just because people make a mistake like the Israelites did in getting a king, they went against God's will, can God still bless them? Yes, if they're willing to obey. And even if we do foolishly, and people do foolish things, and they lose some blessings, should we give up on them? Has God given up on them? Is he still with them? Can they still have victories? Can they still do great things for God? Yes. And where's Samuel in all this? Well, he was in Gibeah. They didn't say that, but he must have been there the whole time with them, right? And we need to be there for people, even when they do foolishly, and help them move forward. In fact, life goes on. Chapter 14, verse 47. After this great victory, and by the way, we are, for the sake of time, skipping a little bit about the whole don't eat anything. See, Saul also did other foolish things, not just in disobeying God, but he, for some reason, decided that nobody should eat or drink anything during battle. So all of his guys were like starting to pass out and stuff. And he said anybody who ate or drank would be killed. And Jonathan didn't hear that. Why didn't Jonathan hear that? Because he was over defeating the garrison at the time he made this foolish. So he ate something. In fact, when he was told people weren't supposed to eat, he's like, well, that's dumb. It's like people are famished. And people started eating the herds. They were so starved with the blood. So Saul finally had to get up and say, okay, you guys can eat now, just don't eat the blood, right? So he's a little foolish at times. A little, how many of us can be that way sometimes? A little impetuous, a little off the top of our head, a little bit. Even then, it's not the end of the world. By the way, they did not kill Jonathan. It's okay. Didn't kill him. Everybody's like, no, he got us the victory, don't kill him. Right? But let's see what happened next. Chapter 14, verse 47. So Saul took the kingdom over Israel and fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab and against the children of Ammon and against Edom and against the kings of Zobah and against the Philistines. And whithersoever he turned himself, he vexed them. And he gathered in hosts and smote the Amalekites and delivered Israel out of the hands of them that spoiled them. So did God still bless Saul? Yes. Was God still with Saul? Yes, absolutely. And look at verse 52. And there was sore war against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he took him unto him, including a young man by the name of David. So we'll get to him a little later on. But we need to remember these things. People do foolish things. Does that mean they're terrible people? Does that mean they're worthless? Does that mean God doesn't love them? No, it doesn't mean any of that stuff. It means they're human beings that do foolish things. We all do that. When we do that, we need to realize, yes, we may have some consequences, but God still blesses and still is with us, and we can still do great things for God. We also need to remember that from Samuel's perspective as the one working with somebody who has done something foolish. It's okay. Work with them. Don't cease to pray for them and teach them and help them all along the way. You may have to tell them about blessings they've lost, but is God still with them? Okay? Now, it's going to get worse. Believe it or not, Saul is going to do another bad thing. And it's going to be even worse this time. But we're going to see Samuel's reaction. Because that's what I always want to kind of focus on, is how does he deal with people when they're making these kinds of mistakes. And it's compassionate, it's understanding. So we'll look at that next week. So, any thoughts on this week? All right, let's pray.